Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to see you. I hope everyone had a lovely lunch. So I'm going to help today to make sure that you do meet more people. So as we said, we're going to talk about how to manage our stress. And I want to set the stage by giving you a story. And it's a story of a person who was born in Silicon Valley, knows technology. That's what she grew up on. That's what she consumes. And she was really fascinated by the people who created that technology. So that led her into user experience. And then user experience led her into product. And she loved it. She was passionate about it. But one day, she found out that she was not feeling that energy anymore. Something was really stressing her out. And as you can guess, that person is me. And so I wanted to share my learnings with you, because being a product manager is stressful. And there's so many ways that we get pulled in all these different directions that sometimes we need a reminder or a speaker to help us reset. So what I'm going to talk through are areas to help us navigate and manage that stress. So to ensure you hit your quota of the people that you need to speak to who you haven't met before, I want you to turn to your neighbor and ask them this question and share your answers. As a product manager, what are your most common ways that you feel stressed? So meet the person next to you. You can help with that quota. So give you guys a couple seconds. I think we have a lot to talk about when it comes to stress based on how that went. So one of the first things is that increasing workload. There's a lot that's coming down to the product managers. You may be in a situation where you're being asked to do more than with less. There may also be a question of shouldn't you spread your wings into design? Shouldn't you spread your wings into engineering? All of these things are causing us additional stress. The other facet is that skills gap. There's new technology. We heard about AI from one of the panels today. That's something we've got to think about. We've got to figure out how to bring it in. We've got to figure out how to navigate everything. That's really stressful. And then the other piece around it is the team management challenges. Being a product person is not a sport that you play alone. It's a team exercise. Everything you do with other people. And that means not only are you managing your stress, you've got to figure out how to navigate and work with all these other people as well. But the thing that really brings it all together is that together, when we take those different facets of being a product person, it adds up. And that's why 88% of us feel stressed. We're basically a stressed out group. But I'm very glad you got to talk to your neighbor about it. I have a feeling that helped you let out some of your stress, because sharing it can definitely do so, as we'll learn today. So one of the things that we need to think about is where our stress comes from. Because if it's something big, like a transition in your life, you're prepared to handle it, because your body knows it's something that you need to work through. But those little niggly stresses, those little things that just accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, we're not really handling it well. And the reason being is that our body isn't set up to acknowledge that stress, because it's falling under the radar. And it isn't until it all stacks up and we have that weight on our shoulders that we realize how stressed we are. And that was my story. I was managing so many different things, juggling so many different people and projects that I didn't realize I was stressed. And that's, again, when I started to dive into what is this stress I'm feeling? Because I'd always thought stress was big. But no, it's those micro stresses that really cause the damage. And so what I learned to do was to give myself a pep talk. And so the way that you do so is you pause. You figure out, where is that stress coming from? What is causing it? And then what you do is you examine the situation. Is there a different way that I can address it? Is there some conversation I need to have with the person who's causing me that stress? Do I just need to sit down? Do I need to chill out? Do I need to talk to somebody? After I've done that, then I'm able to pivot. I'm able to go in a different direction that will help me manage that stress. So when you're feeling stressed the next time, give yourself a pep talk. There are other ways that you can do things to manage your stress. Some of these you're going to need to fight for, especially the buffer time. Between meetings, you're going to need to give yourself some time to breathe. I know I had a calendar that was back to back to back to back of these 30-minute calls, and I had no way to transition. Build in buffer time. The other thing you can do is set aside those do not schedule blocks, and those are extremely valuable. As product people, we're multitasking, but we need to have that time to be able to focus, to designate where we're going to put our energy next. And then the other thing we need to do is have that time to transition between work and life. Working from home is hard when you don't have a transition beyond stepping from one room into another. But you do need to make that time to settle down, to settle yourself down and relieve that stress. The other thing that we need to do is focus on the why. There have been so many great talks today reminding us of the power of product management. And by thinking about that reason that we're here, the reason we do what we do, that helps us rise above the stress, that helps us give that grounding to our focus and our direction, and that helps to calm us. But then you get promoted. You're doing well, you're managing that stress, and there's more that falls on your shoulders. Those techniques that you learned before, they'll still work. But now you've got to figure out how to navigate not just yourself, but all of the people working for you. So how do you do that? What you do is you think about ways that you can manage some of these areas. And when you're a leader, they're more than just these 4 squares of things that you need to overcome and things you need to do well, not just for yourself, but for your team. But these were the 4 that really stood out for me, again, when I was reflecting. I needed to make decisions. I needed to empower people so that they too could step up and make decisions. I needed to determine how the people in my team were all going to get along. How is the quiet person going to get a voice in? How is the extrovert going to be told to calm down? All of those different things that you need to do to be able to get the cohesive team coming together. And there are other things around providing feedback in a way that gave people enough context so that they could really improve, as well as just managing that work-life balance that we talked about a couple slides back. Those are the additional areas that, as a leader, you need to navigate. Again, not just for yourself, but for your team too. And that adds extra stress. So there are 4 steps that I think we should keep in mind when you get to that point and you're managing a team. The recognition of micro-stresses that we talked about before, that applies to leaders too. So remember your pep talk, and that would be something that you can help yourself as well as your team go through. Next one is psychological safety. If you were in the amazing workshops this week, you learned about psychological safety. But it's so important as a product person because we're always exploring the unknown. We're always trying to do things that move our industry, our company, ourselves forward. And that uncharted territory, we need to feel safe that we can actually make mistakes, that we can share those successes as well as those failures. That's why psychological safety is so important and helps to bring down that stress. Other pieces are that you can start a change. A lot of us work in really stressful organizations because, again, there's so much change around us. But you can be the one that can start the opportunity for people to have time to reflect, to set aside focus time, to put in those spots between all the meetings so you can start the change. And then, once you have, all you need to do is to reach out to a few other people, and then that will cause the trigger, and change will occur. It doesn't take much to start a revolution. And from there, you bring everybody together, and you start putting in those initiatives that will help the time be managed better, that will help people have that opportunity to chill out and relax. And then from there, keep going. We're product people. We iterate. We know that what we do once may not work tomorrow. There may be other things that get introduced. Our company may be bought. Things may go a little bit haywire. So always ensure that you keep iterating when you find that thing that helps you to calm down. So here's some ideas and some exercises that you can do with your team. So you can use Figma, FigJam, Miro, your board of choice. But this is a really good exercise just to get things out in the open. And so you have your team talk about their concerns. They put their concerns down on those blue notes. And then they add in ideas on how they can actually address those concerns. Again, even though you're a product leader, you never need to do things alone. You have your team that can help and support you. So try this exercise out with them and then put those ideas into motion. You might be thinking, what if the ideas are crap? What if I have to do with these ideas that aren't that great? That's okay. Even if 10% of the ideas are good, you have a starting point. You have an area to build on. And then what you do is you look at the other 90% and you identify the pieces that stand out. You identify those pieces that you can make better. And that 10% that was good keeps growing as you pick out those other ideas that just with a little bit of a tweak or a change can be really wonderful as well. And then for the visual and the words, this wasn't as fun just to try out again. And it helps you really just talk about those things that are just getting everybody wound up. And so what you do is you identify the elephants in the room, those things that people weren't saying. Again, use Miro or Mural or FigJam. Get those things out there. Put the elephant in the room on a sticky note. Once you've done so, then you list out the dead fish, those things that were lingering in the back of the closet, those things that just, they've always been there. It's always been like that. Those things may cause you a lot of stress too. Get them out in the open. Put them on a sticky note. And then from there, you identify those areas that are just so annoying, those frustrations, you just want to vomit. Do it. Put it on a sticky note. Again, put it out there. And I know that sounds simple. I know it sounds funny, but it really, really helps because we've been keeping things inside. We haven't necessarily been talking about them together. And so putting them out in a space where they're visible by all, we can then talk about them. We can make changes. We can put action plans in place to ensure that they don't happen again. So with each of these exercises, it isn't set it and forget it. You continue to iterate. You continue to check in and make sure that those ideas are being put into motion. And just that forward movement helps you to relieve your stress because you're feeling heard, you're feeling appreciated, and you know you're being understood. So we've got a number of exercises. We've got a lot of things that we learned about. So I know when I ask you guys to talk to your neighbor, it's hard to get us back because we're meeting new people. We get to raise our hands and say that we met new folks. So mentally, think about what is the one takeaway that you have from this talk? Because I want you to put it into motion. Because all of us are in stressful jobs. They're amazing and they're wonderful, but they are stressful. And so think about it. Think about that takeaway. And so from there, I'm going to share my takeaways with you, and I get to cheat a bit. I have 3. And so I want you to acknowledge the stress, especially the micro stress, because that may not be something that you normally think about or acknowledge. Do so. Take that time, pause, examine, and then be able to pivot. So do that pep talk. Also think about the environment you're in. If you're a leader, again, you have that extra stress, but you're not alone. You've got your team to help you. So call on them. Work on your stress together. And then remember, you can start the change. You can be the one who puts stress out in the open and makes those efforts to help navigate through it together, and you'll come out stronger. So I want to thank you guys. And if you have any questions for me, just want to connect, I'd love to be able to follow up with you. So you can find me on LinkedIn. And just a little teaser, if you put in Productized, which is how you heard about me or got this information, I'll share some more tips with you. And it's been wonderful helping me to talk through my stress, but also to help all of you navigate your stress as well. Thank you.